I've built more muscle in the last 4 years than I did in the 10 years before that, and it's not even close. And looking back now with the information and knowledge which I've got, it's so frustrating to know where I actually could be now if I knew that back then. But you can't change the past, you can only change the future, and I've made the mistakes so you don't have to. So if you're someone who's been going to the gym for years and your physique still looks the same, this video is one to watch. I want you to get a feel for the person I was back then when I first started the gym. Now, I first went into the gym when I was 14. It was like a literal after school club, tiny gym, cable stack, weights, but I was always the chubby kid growing up. Always the one that felt self-conscious and got the piss taken out of him, and always that one that just carried a little bit of extra body fat and just comparing to my mates about why are they skinny and I'm not. The gym was the one thing that helped me move away from that identity, that personality, and that person which I was attached to pretty much growing up through my childhood. I fell in love with it, of course, because that was the one thing that allowed me to change and step into becoming a new person. And since I was 14, I probably have been going there every single week. But that's all I was doing. At 14 years of age, 2014, you're not to know otherwise. Well, I didn't anyway. I didn't have access to what was out there in terms of information and knowledge around about getting in shape. What we've got access to today in terms of what we've got accessible in terms of information, we just didn't have it back then. I was in the era of Rich Piana and watching this big, massive guy on YouTube slam Ben and Jerry's, bulking every single day, looking absolutely huge, and think, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. I quite fancy some Ben and Jerry's. I'm going to do the exact same. I was on bodybuilding.com following Jay Cutler's program thinking, if I follow this program, I'll get that big. With not a clue what steroids even were, and just think, oh, go, these guys are eating a lot of food, they're training hard, you just end up like that. That sums it up. And as you can tell, it didn't really work out very well, did it? But I just thought that by going to the gym, eating a little bit healthier was enough, but it obviously wasn't. And the more you go, the bigger I'll get. But that was the whole problem. I actually changed. What have I changed in the last 4 years compared to the 10 years before that, whereby I was staying stuck in the same cycle? I'm going to run through the 3 steps, which you should definitely be implementing into your training every single week, and you will notice a dramatic difference over the next few months if you nail them consistently. Number 1 is your form. Probably the be all and end all when it comes to actually building muscle, because if you're jumping onto an exercise and your form is off, that muscle is not set up to be targeted correctly. You're not going to drive enough tension through that muscle because it's not set up to actually be worked properly. So actually fixing my form was one of the key foundations for this to actually happen, because before that I was just going into a gym, going on a machine, not really having a clue in terms of how to set up correctly, bench height, machine heights, everything to actually match the structure of my body and how my body actually moves on the inside when it comes to muscles and contractions. One of the big things I would always say is tempo. It wasn't until like the last 4 years whereby I really started slowing down my tempo, and now you see a lot of people really slowing it down excessively. That's not the case. A big thing I'd say about tempo is understanding who controls the weight. Are you in control of the weight, or are you controlling the speed in which the weight moves? And that's a big difference. You know, with the chest press, you see a lot of people just drop it down to the chest and fly it back up. As soon as your elbows bend, that machine is in control of you. But as soon as your elbows bend, you're controlling the pace in which that comes down to your chest. That is the key tempo in which you want to be doing. You want to be in control of that weight at all times, and you're dictating the pace in which that moves. And that is the right tempo. Not only that, when your form is off and you're not set up correctly, you're not stabilizing your core, your shoulders are moving all over the place. When you're performing reps, your body's moving all over the place. It's not stable, right? That means your form breaks down, other muscles are getting hit, secondary muscles are coming into place, and you're never really utilizing that muscle to its full effect because your form is off and it's a bit all over the place. For me, was standardizing my form. Every single exercise, every single set, every single session was immaculate form. And it was actually having a coach in my corner to actually teach me about this in terms of how I should be executing movements correctly. Whereas if not, I would have just been going on my own, assuming that because I'm going to the gym, I'm doing everything right. Yet I was missing so much progress because he had to literally rip apart my entire training and instill this into me in terms of how to actually move correctly in conjunction with my actual body and its structure. You can see, I'm going to put an example up in terms of how my training quality looks now. With the chest press itself, you can see that every single rep is the same speed. There's not a lot of moving about. There's no tappy feet. The shoulders aren't rolling forward. Every single exercise is bang on and immaculate until I get to failure towards the end of the set. And that's what my training is like for every single exercise, every single training session, every single week. And it has been for the last 4 years, and it's made a dramatic difference to the amount of muscle mass and the amount of development I've been able to see within my physique. So a big thing I would say is record your sets. If you don't have a coach to actually analyze your training, record your sets and look back at it. Does it look off? Does it look right? You know, when you're going into the gym, don't just jump onto a machine. Have a little bit of time to actually adjust the machine around. Okay, do a couple of light reps. Can I feel the muscle I'm trying to target? Do I have enough blood flow there? Is the machine set up for someone that's way taller than you or way smaller than you? Make sure you do a couple of warm-up sets first. Maybe record your set in terms of your warm-up and have a look. Does it look right? Does it look off? Is everything actually aligned to actually work that muscle you're trying to target in that exercise? Big thing, form. 2 is intensity. I believe that with anything hard in life, and especially with intensity with regards to training, you need exposure. So 9 times out of 10, people are going in the gym, they're getting to 10 reps and they're stopping. Way before you've even got failure, way before the reps even slow down. And it wasn't until I actually trained in person with my coach and he seriously put me through my paces with regards to a leg day, I realized, shit, I've got a whole new level in which I can find here. And I'm wondering, why are these guys so big and why am I staying the same? It's intensity. The science says we need to be falling between 1 to 3 reps of true muscle failure. And if you're stopping 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 reps beforehand, you're just not forcing those muscles enough to actually stimulate growth and cause that breakdown to occur. So a big thing for me is like, just ignore your rep ranges. So many people get so caught up on, oh, I've got 10 reps, oh, I've got 12 reps, I've got 15 reps. Ignore it. Yes, there might be a rep range in your program, but fucking ignore it. If you've got more reps than nothing in the tank on every single set you've got, then just take them. Take them until that actual set completely stops and that muscle cannot produce that same force. This video, again, shows a good example, right? I know I'm using the chest press twice, but I think it's a very, very good example to actually show you what a true point of failure is. As you can see throughout the set, the speed in which the reps occur are consistent. But towards the end, they naturally start to slow down. And that isn't me slowing them down. That's just my muscles building up that tension and unable to produce that same force output to move that weight at the same speed. And at that point in time, when you notice those reps start to slow, not when you're going through a rep and you feel a little bit of resistance, no, when it generally starts to slow down and you notice it between the last few reps, that's when you know you're at the failure point, and that's when you know you're at the sweet spot to actually build muscle. And I'd always say, look, you're never gonna die on a machine, right? There's always a way out. That's why they make them safe. So don't worry about a machine crushing you, anything like that, because it doesn't happen, right? It's all in your head. And a lot of those beliefs around actually pushing hard is that fear of, oh my God, I'm gonna get stuck under this machine. I can't be able to push it up. What if I don't get to push it up? You'll be okay. And getting out your way in terms of that belief will unlock a whole new level of progress. So if you fix your form and that muscle is set up to actually be hit correctly and you train fucking hard to failure, you will stimulate a shit ton of muscle growth. The fact is that the better your training quality is, the less you actually need to do, because it's over quality over quantity. Because if you go into the gym 5, 6 days a week and you were just doing those 10 reps, not really asked what you're doing, not really tracking your training, then you just wouldn't be stimulating growth. But if you go in there 3 days a week and you train like a fucking animal, high quality, with form, with consistency, with progressions, and with intensity, you will generate a lot of new muscle tissue onto your frame by doing less work. It's not about doing more. If the quality is poor, you will actually get away with less if your quality is to a good standard. So number 3 is I had to get out of my own way with food. As I said, I've come from a background of being that overweight kid and always relating, scales going up to being fat and that being a bad thing. When I went into the gym straight away, at 14, because I started resistance training and applying that to my body fat literally shredded off. You're at that young age when your metabolism fucking fires, and you can change very quickly when you start adding resistance to it at 14 when it's all a new stimulus. But ever since then, for the period of time from like 2014, 2020, I always associated weight gain and, scales going up with me getting fat again, me going back to that old self. And subconsciously, I'd moved away from that for so long and it caused me so much stress throughout my whole childhood that I never wanted to go back to that. And that was the point in time where I had to hire a coach, because I couldn't get through that mental block myself on my own. Because when I was holding myself accountable and doing it for myself, I'd say, yeah, I'm bulking. I'd do it wrong because I didn't know what to do. I'd eat loads of calories. My abs would go, I'd get fat, I'd crash diet back down. And then it was just an up and down yo-yo all the time, and never really knowing what a calorie surplus was and spending time in that environment in the right way, eating the right foods to actually grow new muscle tissue while staying lean at the same time. And When I got my first coach, the first time I actually did my first proper bulk, I went from 70 kilos, I'll show you here, to 96 kilos. Now, some of the methods used in there, I don't personally agree with in terms of eating, to chase scale weight and push into a number. I don't believe in that personally. I do believe you do have to add on scale weight and eat a higher amount of calories, of course, but not at the cost of just gaining excessive amounts of body fat. But nevertheless, by doing that, I did create a new foundation of muscle tissue, but that is avoidable. And I would always say so, because the leaner you can stay in a muscle building phase, the more sensitive you are to actually building muscle tissue as opposed to just accumulating more body fat. So again, that whole lean bulk just pretty much means just not over excessively eating calories for the sake of it because you're on a bulk. And obviously on that bulk, I was eating upwards of, as I said, 4,500 calories a day, gaining 26 kilos. You should never really have to gain 26 kilos in terms of bulk. So again, it's not all me, but at the same time, it did create some muscle tissue onto my frame during that phase. Bottom line is that you do need to go through a period of eating more food. Spending time away from focusing on dieting all the time and being in that restrictive environment, being in that catabolic state whereby you are in a calorie deficit, minimal muscle will actually be built in that because we're not in that anabolic environment for muscle to grow. So you actually do have to give your body the chance to cement new muscle onto the frame. And if you're someone who's stayed stuck in the exact same spot, it's like that you've never been through a proper gaining phase over a period of 6 to 12 months of actually pushing that scale weight up in a controlled manner, getting stronger, filling out, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and actually allowing your body to cement those new foundations onto the frame. What I will say though is, and a big thing for me now is that I'm in a building phase right now. Nothing is forever. Yep, your face might get a little bit less skinnier. Yep, your abs may get a little bit softer, but nothing's forever. And especially like for me, I've been shredded twice. I know I can lose it. I know exactly what to do. It's not forever. It's just a phase. Muscle building phase, fat loss phase. These things are not permanent. But when we're in them in the moment, it feels very permanent. But just understanding that you can always lose body fat. Even if you take things too far, you can always pull it back. But what I would always say is that treat your muscle building phase the same as you would your dieting phase. Same standards, clean nutrition, progressively increasing that up, getting stronger, and you will dramatically keep your body composition in a tight check year round, but definitely have to go through a period of eating more food if you want to cement new muscle tissue onto the frame. Not only that, have I seen it firsthand with myself in terms of how much progress I've made over the last 4 years versus the previous 10, but I see it with clients all the time. Some of them have been training for 8, 9, 10 years and stay stuck in the exact same spot. And whenever we look at it, it's never usually the food. Yes, the diet could be tidied up a little bit more, of course. It's always their training. I have never seen a client come through the door, and I've coached hundreds of people with immaculate training. Everybody has to be worked on their training with the intensity, with their form, with the consistency with that. Because if they haven't changed and they've been going to the gym for years, training is the problem. Because that is the only way to build muscle. You see the results like this, this, and this. What does that before picture say? That is them going at it alone. That is them going at it with their own knowledge and staying stuck in the same spot. And the difference when it comes to the actual transformation picture, it's them going at it with a coach, actually learning what works and having their form and their training analyzed and doing something different, not the same old because they would just get the same outcome. That is the transformation. That is the difference. And as you can see, the results are dramatic. So it's time to stop saying you struggle to build muscle and actually look and go, how many of those things am I doing consistently, which I've just mentioned, with regards to your form, with regards to your intensity, with regards to pushing up progressively in a calorie surplus? How much have you actually spent over your training journey doing those things consistently week in, week out? And that is usually the difference. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, you're probably doing everything right, but not focusing on the key, fine, right details that going to the gym does not equal a physique change, that eating healthy doesn't equal building new muscle or getting leaner. It's about the actual quality of the work which you're actually doing, which will actually drive you to where you want to be. And if you're in a position whereby you've been stuck for years, as I said, it probably is your training. So if you want to kickstart with this, what I've done is I've built out a 3-day, a 4-day, and a 5-day training program for you, because I understand a lot of people go into the gym, they're winging it, they're doing whatever they fancy on the day. The base of it all is having some structure to actually go off, because if you follow the same training program constantly, you build up the skill of getting better at that program. By chopping and changing, you never really improve the actual skill of that training program itself. So if you want a copy of either of those programs, just comment the number below in terms of what day would suit your life best. Just comment 3 for the 3-day, 4 for the 4-day, or 5 for the 5-day, and I will reply in the comments and I will send you a direct link to the training program for you to use and kickstart this off going forward so we can start making some more progress and you can actually apply everything I've said into your own training. And if you do that over the next 6 months between now and the end of the year, for example, you'll notice a dramatic change in terms of your fullness, your strength, your size. It will be a game changer. Okay, so if you want one of the training programs, you know what to do. And that, if you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.